Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is shut. Let's start with some definitions. The first definition is to put something in a position so that it blocks an opening. You might think of shutting the window, shutting a door. All of those things are closing an opening. The second definition is to close something by bringing together or folding its parts. For this, think about how you might shut a book. The third definition is to cause, and this might be to cause a business or a school or something else to end or suspend services or activities. Right now, many businesses are shut because of the pandemic. Let's look at different forms for shut. This is an irregular verb. If we want to make the progressive, because this verb ends in consonant, vowel, consonant, we need to add another T before adding ing. So you can see there the progressive form, shutting. The past and participle forms, you might notice, are exactly the same as the base verb. So we would just say shut for past tense. If we want to make a participle, so has shut, have shut, as you can see, same spelling, same pronunciation. Let's look at some phrasal verbs now. The first phrasal verb I have is shut down. And this is very similar to the earlier definition I gave to you about closing or suspending operations. Sometimes it might imply that this could be permanent. So you might hear a new restaurant has shut down. Shut down, though, could also have another meaning of to stop the operation of a machine. Let's look at an example sentence here. You should shut down your computer each night. The next phrasal verb I have is to shut something in. And it means to trap something in another thing. And many times this other thing is going to be a door. So here's an example of that. Ouch! I just shut my finger in the door. I'm bad at shutting my fingers in drawers as well sometimes. Another phrasal verb is to shut something off. And this, again, usually applies to machines and stopping it. Here's an example sentence. The machine shuts off by itself at the end of the cycle. So maybe this example is a washing machine that just shuts off, turns itself off at the end of a cycle. The last phrasal verb I have for you is something I want you to be very careful with. So it's the phrasal verb shut up. And many times this could be used as a command or an imperative. So its meaning is if you're saying it to someone else, you want them to stop talking or you want them to become silent, not making any noise. But again, you need to be very careful about how you're using this. If you're a child, you never want to say this to a teacher or a person of authority. For adults who might be watching the video, this is not something to say to a boss, right? You might hear some native speakers say this to their friends, and I would say listen for their tone and how they're saying it. Are they saying it and kind of smiling? So then it's like a joke a bit, like, oh, shut up, right? That doesn't sound angry or mean. And when you know someone, you might be able to joke around like that. But again, if you say this and you have some anger in your voice, it is a very, very strong statement. And it could make the other person angry or mad as well that you have spoken to them in this way. So my example sentence here, again, is not something you need to try out, but in case you would hear it, shut up, I'm trying to think. So maybe someone's working and someone else is just making too much noise. Okay. Let's look at some more sample sentences with shut. Today, I want us to look at modals and how we make requests. We're going to start with less polite requests, and you can see all of these are going to be questions. Okay? So you might say to a friend or a family member, can you shut the window? Or will you shut the window? Can and will are going to stay the same no matter what the subject is. So if it's I, you, we, they, he, she, it doesn't matter. So we start with the modal, then the subject, and then our base verb. Okay? And if someone were to ask you this request, right, you could answer in the affirmative by saying, sure, certainly, of course, no problem, I'd be glad to. But if you want to answer in the negative, you might hear someone say, I'm sorry, but I can't. You might also hear, I'm afraid I can't, right? And after each of these statements, someone might expand and give a reason why they're not able to complete the request. Okay? If we want to make our request just a bit more formal or more polite, what we can do is change the modals to could or would. And we make those requests in the exact same way. Modal, then the subject, then the base verb. And we have these examples. Could you shut the lights off? Or would you shut the lights off? Right? And again, our answers to these questions are going to be the same. Sure, certainly, of course, no problem, I'd be glad to. Or in the negative, I'm sorry, but I can't. Or I'm afraid I can't. With both, or I should say with all four modals, can, will, could, and would, you could also add please into your request to make it more polite. And we can insert please in two places. So we can insert it at the end of our question, which is nice, easy to remember, just the last word. Can you shut the window, please? Or could you shut the lights off, please? Okay. The other place we can insert please is right between the subject and the verb. Can you please shut the window? Could you please shut the lights off? Both of those will work. Finally, I want to show you, and probably what's considered maybe the most polite way to make a request, and it's with this phrase, would you mind? Okay? And then after that phrase, we're going to use the progressive form of the verb. Would you mind shutting the door? Okay? When we make this request, we do not want to use please. It's not necessary. Okay? And sometimes what might sound a bit funny is how an affirmative answer to this type of question is. So, would you mind doing this particular thing? Someone might say, not at all. Of course not. I'd be glad to, or no problem. Now, three of those sound like negatives, right? We have a not, we have two nots and a no, but they are affirmative answers. What you're saying is, I do not mind fulfilling or doing what you have requested me to do. But you'll notice the negative answers still stay the same. Would you mind doing this? I'm sorry, but I can't. Or I'm afraid I can't. Let's talk about some related words to shut. So I've told you S-H-U-T is a verb, but it could also be an adjective. And in adjective form, it means something is closed or fastened up. So in a sentence here, the door is shut. Okay? So we might see this word after a be verb. That's a good clue that it's an adjective, or if it comes before a noun and is describing something. The next related word is shut in. This is a noun. It's usually referring to a person who is unable to leave their home, or maybe even a room in their home, because of illness or injury. Mrs. Smith has been a shut-in for many years after the accident. The last related word I have is shutters. It's a noun, and it's a solid or movable cover for a window. My example sentence here, they're painting their shutters blue. And so you have a good example of what that might look like. If you look at the bottom right hand of the screen, you'll see a white house with blue shutters. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope it helps you practice your listening, your reading, speaking, and writing skills. Have a great day.